Deep in the Guatemalan jungle, a limestone pyramid stands as a silent witness to history. Tourists take photos and guidebooks highlight its mathematical and astronomical precision. But if you look closer, the steep stairs, sharp angles and sight lines were not meant just for admiration. They served a much darker purpose. Each step of these pyramids was made for spectacle. Every stone was placed to set the stage for an act that would leave people breathless, horrified, and in awe. This was not architecture first and ritual later. The ritual was built into the architecture from the start. Today we're peeling back centuries of myth and ignoring the romanticized vision of the Maya. Because behind the pyramids, behind the mathematics and celestial alignments, there is a truth most of us are unready to see. These monuments were machines of blood meticulously engineered to turn human life into a spectacle of power, devotion, and terror. Welcome to the story of sacrifice, geometry, and the architecture of death. The theology that demanded blood behind every pyramid stood a worldview that made human death non-negotiable. The Maya mapped 3 cosmic realms onto the world around them: the heavens above, the middle world of the living, and the underworld below. To them, these weren't abstract ideas. They were blueprints. Each realm became an engineering requirement, shaping the design and purpose of every major construction. In their creation stories, the gods weren't all, they were tired, drained from shaping the world. They left behind a cosmic debt that could never truly be paid off. And if that debt went unmet, everything was at risk. The gods would weaken. The sun might not rise. Crops could fail. Time itself could unravel. This crisis demanded chaos substitution, a vital exchange that required not prayers, but blood. Human blood specifically, the heart and the vitalizing essence. Shulal, it contained, contemporary Maya texts are explicit. Our sprouting, our growing, our living is blood. Life force, concentrated in flesh and fluid. The pyramid symbolized a sacred mountain where all 3 cosmic realms met. But plain limestone couldn't serve as that meeting point on its own. It needed life. It needed shulal, a vital essence that could only be given through sacrifice built directly into its construction. Picture the planning sessions. Priests and architects bent over their plans, tracing lines into the sand. Where do the victims climb? How many must watch? Which angles will make the spectacle impossible to look away from? How deep should the offerings be buried to bind the structure to the gods? These weren't afterthoughts. They were core design requirements as essential as any structural calculation. By building the need for constant sacrifice into the very stone, the ruling elite secured their position as the indispensable mediators between humans and the gods for as long as the monuments stood. These temples weren't built first and consecrated later. They were designed from the very beginning with one purpose in mind: to receive human hearts at their summits. And the first place that truth surfaced was the foundations themselves. What the excavations revealed at the Moon Pyramid in Tiote, a distinct civilization whose builders maintained extensive contact with Maya polities. Excavations revealed systematic patterns. Each new construction phase, beginning with Building 4, was initiated with a major sacrificial event. Multiple phases, multiple victims, each one required. The human remains tell their stories. Victims spanning from 14 to over 60 years old. Many displayed cranial modifications, flattened foreheads marking elite status, dental decorations suggesting nobility. But oxygen isotope analysis revealed something more disturbing. Some victims showed ratios indicating foreign origins of water chemistry from distant regions, including potential mire from the lowlands. They were captured in warfare, transported hundreds of miles, then sacrificed and buried within the pyramid's foundation as guardian figures embedded in stone. The sacrifice of these high-status captives, enemy nobles, possibly even rival kings, represented the maximum value offering. By seizing and burying the vital essence of an elite captive within their own monuments, the conquering polity symbolically absorbed and neutralized rival power. Human life, especially elite life, functioned as recognized high-value currency across vast Mesoamerican political spheres. These weren't random offerings. They were intentional elements of the structure itself, positioned with the same precision and purpose as the pyramid's cornerstones. You don't select just anyone for sacrifice. They have to be specific individuals selected for becoming the ultimate sacrificial victims, representing the state that are able to fulfill the function of a successful ritual dedication. Modern bioarchaeology circumvented Spanish chroniclers who inflated victim counts to justify conquest. Oxygen isotope analysis reads geography directly from bone chemistry with scientific precision. These individuals traveled vast distances specifically for sacrificial burial. Across Maya sites, a consistent pattern emerges. Hundreds of dedication caches contained human remains, along with jade, shells, and obsidian blades. The mask is completely green, represented the person in his youth. This was an attempt to freeze youth for eternity in his way to the underworld. These offerings were deliberately placed within the building cores, beneath the floors and in foundation trenches. By embedding these sacrifices at a monument's inception, the Maya intimately linked the structure's identity to sacred time. But dedication was only half the cycle. Each Maya monument had a recognized lifespan, and before it could be rebuilt, it had to be properly closed through rituals. Termination ritual deanimated the previous construction. Floors burned black, cache objects smashed, releasing the spirit from the space. Then, human remains were placed on top before rebuilding. Each rebuilding carried the monument's story forward. Every layer tied the new structure to the old, linking past and future through the sacrifices sealed inside. This was a universal practice. In central Belize, even commoner homes were ritually terminated every 40 to 50 years, a cycle likely tied to specific calendar dates. For non-elite Maya, this cyclical process embedded a physical historical record into their floors. Much like the monumental record-keeping of the elite stele, walls would be torn down, floors, borned, and artifacts, sometimes alongside human remains, were deposited before a new dwelling was constructed in its place. Every building, from grand temples to simple homes, was believed to have its own life, and like any living thing, it needed to be born, nourished, and eventually laid to rest through ritual and blood. The geometry of Death Maya architects didn't accommodate sacrifice. They optimized it. The pyramidal design was clearly intentional, a steep-sided structure culminating in a small summit temple. This served as an elevated stage for executions, enhancing religious significance, dramatic effect, and public visibility. The height of the pyramid raised the ritual space closer to the heavens, linking the ruler and the offering to the gods. But that vertical distance also served a purpose on the ground. It created perfect sightlines for everyone watching below. Those monumental staircases weren't symbolic. They were designed as precise viewing angles. As a victim climbed, everyone in the plaza, sometimes thousands of people, could see every step. The architecture left no place to hide. The summit platform worked like a theater, small enough to focus every movement, high enough to project it across the entire plaza. The pale limestone made blood stand out instantly, and once the ritual was done, the steep staircase turned the fall into a brutal display, each body tumbling downward and marking the stone for everyone to see. Later Mesoamerican accounts describe the Chukmol, a stone figure used at post-classic sites like Chichen Itza. Its angled surface made hard extraction easier, positioning the victim and giving the priest the leverage needed for a clean cut. The fact that this same execution design appears across centuries shows how deeply the idea of optimized sacrifice was built into their architecture. The papal vue tells of captives bound into tight bundles and hurled down the pyramid steps as a form of ritual execution. In moments like this, the architecture wasn't just a backdrop that played an active role, with its angles and surfaces shaping how the ritual unfolded. Ballcourts reveal even more intentional design. They weren't built as sports arenas, but as ritual stages where sacred games ultimately ended in execution. At Chichen Itza, the Zompantli, or skull rack, stands right beside the Great Bowl. It displayed the skulls of decapitated players, not hidden away, but placed in full view as part of the site's ritual landscape. The carvings on the ballcourt walls make this link clear. One panel even shows a decapitated head becoming a rubber ball. The entire space was designed to reenact central myths, including the hero twins defeating the lords of the underworld through the ball game. Sacrifice wasn't the sequel to play. That was the point. Acoustics, viewing angles, and ritual pathways are all designed to transform athletic competition into cosmic theater ending in execution. Monumental sculpture reinforced this message. Largest AI panels and altars were placed throughout temple complexes, surrounding the elite with imagery of warfare and sacrifice. At Palenque, for example, captive sculptures in the East Court positioned elite visitors, directly among representations of the defeated, symbolically among the captives, a spatial reminder of their dual identity as warrior and potential victim. These monuments reinforce the ongoing need for warfare and sacrifice. Their design amplified that message across generations, acting almost like an early form of emotional engineering, using sound and space to shape how people felt and responded during rituals. This tight integration of belief, architecture, and ceremony created what anthropologists call a ritual economy. It supported impressive cultural achievements, but it also carried pressures and vulnerabilities that would eventually become devastating. Building these massive monuments required huge labor forces. The Maya's strict social hierarchy made this possible, giving the ruling elite the authority to organize and often compel ordinary people to work. But these construction projects were more than building efforts. They were tools for maintaining power. By staging elaborate rituals, including large public sacrifices inside new monuments, leaders tied their authority to cosmic order. The buildings reinforced the rituals, and the rituals justified the buildings, creating a cycle that kept both the architecture and the leadership system in place. There was also a psychological side to all of this. Costly, intense rituals helped hold communities together. Public sacrifice wasn't only a religious duty, it also created a powerful shared experience that strengthened group identity. The violent treatment of captives served several purposes at once. It offered emotional and social release for both the priests and the crowd, creating a shared sense of control, safety, and unity through collective acts of violence. Imagine standing in that plaza, thousands of voices around you, drums echoing off the stone, copal incense mixing with a metallic scent in the air. Heat rises from the packed crowd as you watch the procession climb the steps, tension building with every move. The architecture doesn't just frame the scene, it shapes your emotions as precisely as it controls your view. Building these monuments helped justify the sacrifices, and the dramatic sacrifices justified building even more monuments. This cycle kept reinforcing itself and pushed classic Maya society to grow more complex. But this system only worked when resources were stable. When droughts and shortages hit, that balance began to break apart. When the rain stopped and crops began to fail, it felt as though the cosmic contract itself had been disrupted. Maya leaders didn't change their governing strategies during these ecological crises. Instead, they doubled down on ritual. Worship of Chuk, the rain god, expanded and cave sacrifices increased. As agriculture faltered, the ruling elites turned to the most dramatic ritual they had: human sacrifice, hoping it would force the gods to respond. This shows how rigid the system had become. Even though Maya engineers could create practical solutions, like Tikal's advanced water systems, periods of crisis compelled leaders to prioritize ritualistic practices over genuine, adaptive strategies. Their political structure relied so heavily on ideology that it couldn't easily shift to practical responses. Climate shocks pushed leaders toward even more extreme displays of sacred power. Monuments that once signaled prosperity became stages for rising ritual demands. In good times, the system worked, but under ecological stress it grew rigid. Ritual took the place of real solutions, becoming a desperate stand-in for effective governance. As the crises dragged on, massive building projects and costly rituals drained the resources people needed to survive, speeding the collapse. The very monuments meant to ensure cosmic favor ended up contributing to their downfall. They were sky watchers, they were scientists and astrologers that interpreted the sun, predicted eclipses, understood the Venus cycle. And so it's really incredible to understand how meaningful this place was. For decades, scholars resisted this reality. They drew a sharp line between the Maya and the bloodthirsty Aztecs, portraying the Maya as peaceful, intellectual, and focused on astronomy, essentially placing them above the violent practices of neighboring cultures. Modern excavations have shattered that idea. The classic Maya carried out extensive, highly structured ritual killing. Across 8 major sites, archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of sacrificial deposit patterns repeated over centuries and across different city-states. The evidence is unmistakable. The same society that charted the stars with remarkable precision also carried out systematic ritual killing to fulfill the beliefs. Behind those calculations, these weren't separate impulses. They came from the same unified worldview. Human sacrifice at these architectural centers wasn't a spontaneous emotion. It was a structured, legal, moral, and political tool. It helped create and maintain social order across Mesoamerica. Public sacrifices on these massive platforms showed that rulers were meeting their obligations to the gods and helping keep the cosmos in balance. The architecture amplified the spectacle, turning each death into a powerful display of state authority, witnessed by thousands. We must recognize that the Mayas' intellectual achievements and their systematic violence were not contradictions. They were two sides of the same worldview, one that treated human life as a building block of their society. Walk through the ruins today. Tikal's pyramids rise from the mist. Palenque's palace sits silent in the afternoon heat. And Chichen Itza, once a stage 4 execution, is now photographed by tourists. You're standing on monuments that, from their foundations to their summits, were built to demand and shape human sacrifice, ritual, killing, engineered to function for centuries. Walk the stairs yourself. Feel the steep pull and the tilt that throws off your balance. Now imagine climbing them with your hands bound, drawn toward a fate you cannot escape. The angles leave you exposed to everyone below, no place to hide, no mercy to expect. Here, the architecture doesn't just hold the ritual, it shapes it. Every step, every movement, every moment was built into the design of the stone. The stones preserve what we often overlook. Human brilliance and violence existed side by side. Great achievements were built on harsh realities. Architecture is never neutral. It reflects the values, fears, and priorities of those who create it. The Maya didn't build temples and then added sacrifice later. From the start, they designed these structures as permanent altars for blood offerings. Their architecture was inseparable from their religious beliefs, with monuments constructed to require human sacrifice as part of their function. The pyramids still stand, silent and enduring, waiting for the next civilization to ask why we build, what we build, and what costs we are willing to bury in our foundations. When we stand before these ruins, Tikal, Palenque, and Chichen Itza, we're not just looking at old buildings. We're seeing a worldview carved into stone, a world where geometry guided belief, leadership demanded blood, and architecture set the stage for maintaining cosmic order. These pyramids weren't just backdrops for ritual. They were carefully designed to control movement, sight lines, and the experience of those present. Even long after the last sacrifice, the design of the stones reveals their original purpose. But the deeper question isn't just what the Maya built. It's what we notice and what we choose to overlook when we look at it. Do we admire their mathematics and ignore the cost? Celebrate their astronomy while overlooking the lives it demanded? Or do we accept that human brilliance and brutality have always existed together, shaping civilizations in ways we often refuse to see? Because in the end, these monuments aren't just relics of a vanished world, they're warnings carved in limestone. They remind us that every civilization, including our own, builds according to its deepest fears and its most desperate hopes. The temples, towers, and institutions we build, our greatest structures always conceal a cost, a hidden burden built into their very foundations. The Maya left their truths in stone. The question now is whether we're willing to read them.